Hey, everybody, welcome to the Career Pulse Podcast, your vital sign for career and business. From everyday go-getters like you, my name is Hayward Crawford. I am a filmmaker, financial coach, and content producer. Great to have you guys here. I'm going to have an interview today with the one and only Harley Whelan. Harley Whelan started doing Judo at age 7 and Tae Kwon Do at age 15. He's actually from Sweden. Got involved in a lot of different competitions in Europe before coming over to start studying acting in 1994, where he landed work in different agencies around the country. Harley spent a significant amount of time with Bally Total Fitness as a senior area supervisor, as well as other areas in corporate America. He also continued his artistic outlet in Judo and MMA, fighting professionally, as well as hosting a number of events for a while. And Harley recently made a return back to acting and filmmaking, starting local indie productions around the Michigan area. And once the incentives were cut a few years ago, he actually transitioned to start taking film classes and acting in different things, and transition into short films and features. So he actually went on to produce and co-direct his first feature, Deceitful, led by Moving Parts, where he acquired a team including his wife Katie as the production team, as an associate producer, as well as Nancy Ashwin, a co-producer, writer, and visual effects makeup artist. And now Moving Parts is in distribution with a strong distributor. Harley also brought in another core team member, Annette Sama, for Taking Over. That's coming out in September with a very strong distributor. Harley's team also took a big step and paired up Tom Sizemore and Dennis Haskins in the multi-award-winning feature Into a Dark Mind. It's a film that's racked up over 17 official selections and 8 wins in the festival circuit, and that will be distributed this fall as well. And after taking another big step, he actually went on to direct Bennett's Song with Tara Reid and Dennis Haskins. This film just hit the film festival circuit and already has 2 nominations and 2 big wins. Right now, Harley and company are currently waiting for their biggest film to date to be finalized and a trailer to be dropped. Artificial Loyalty, for one, is a crime drama thriller centered around trafficking and drugs and life of crime with dirty politicians, with amazing actors such as John Savage, Billy Wirth, Richard Tyson, Bianca Blanco, TJ Storm, and Jan Birch. Feels very timely with him having 3 daughters and a wife for him to, he thought it'd be nice to, scare some people into action, to stand up against drug trafficking. But it's a really good subject that he's looking to tackle. In the spring of 2018, Harley's team shot their first horror movie, Agramon's Gate, featuring an amazing Laureen Landon and the fantastic Jan Birch. This film has drawn more attention than the rest from media so far, and Harley obviously can't wait to see where it goes. Harley right now is currently in pre-production of yet another big feature film with a multiple string of notable names. It's a sci-fi action film called Abeyance. He even still has 1 or 2 slots left for investors on this one. And this he promises to be his biggest film yet, with letters of intent from a major distributor. So Harley, he ensures the future is bright for Painted Creek Productions, and he actually predicts Michigan will be on the map and relevant in film again. So what I really enjoyed about this episode when we started talking is that a lot of it he talks about is having a great focus, knowing when to make a choice and know when to, to get rid of the safety net and go all in. Also, he talks about different strategies as far as mindset. There's no such thing as no. It's all about how do I get this off the ground. So we talk a lot about distribution and how he's amassed such a level of work, within the past few years. He shoots 3 features a year, which is almost unheard of in this industry. A lot of big takeaways he also talks about is that, always make time for yourself, manage your people, time, and systems. And also a big part is that he didn't feel like he wasted a lot of time in the business world, but he took a lot of that and was able to apply it toward, the filmmaking world, which are really going to dive in deep on. He talks about directing super in the moment, kind of knowing when to throw out the instruction manual in there. And then finally, I mean, he talks a lot about never comparing yourself to where others are at. Always, feeling like you're uncomfortable only when you're not prepared. And talks about a lot of, just working hard and, seeing things through. So I really appreciate this interview. You're going to get a lot out of it. So just help me introduce the one and only Harley Whelan. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Career Pulse podcast, your vital sign for career and business from everyday go-getters like you. I'm here with the one, the only Harley Whelan. Harley, how you doing today?
I'm really good. How about you?
Not bad, not bad. Can't complain. Glad to have you in the studio here. I know you're a busy guy and just coming off another feature film shoot. So I know things are kind of like up and running and, getting and going and, everything's moving fast. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
So I just want to kind of just dive right in. Those that may not know you, just want to kind of, start off saying, like, what do you typically tell people when they ask you what you do?
I try not to define myself with a hat. So filmmaker is probably the first thing that come to mind, although my first love is acting. So I've had a couple of people that were making films and they said, so do you still act in other people's films? I'm like, yes, I do. Of course I do. But filmmaker is probably my biggest occupation as of right now. We make 3 feature films a year. So it's a packed schedule.
Yeah, you don't hear about that a lot, 3 features a year. So tell me, Harley, tell me about some of your early beginnings, in Judo and Tae Kwon Do and, growing up in Europe.
So I moved kind of from out of town, lived in a small village and moved to a bigger city in Sweden. My parents got me into judo, and it's kind of funny because I tried a bunch of different sports, from 5 to 7. I think I played, a couple of weeks or a month of a bunch of different sports, and I always felt that when you play a team sport, although I loved the camaraderie, it was kind of frustrating because I could be awful and we could win as a team, and I really had nothing to do with it, and here I am celebrating. Or I could be really good at something and I could have terrible teammates and we could lose. So judo for me was something that immediately grabbed my attention, even though I was actually terrible at that also to begin. I think I grew funny or something. But, for not winning a single tournament from age 7 to age 12, I hit 12 and I couldn't stop winning. So it was kind of odd how everything worked. I got on a junior national team and started competing internationally at 13, and then picked up a couple of different martial arts along the way. Tae Kwon Do was the second part because I felt now I know how to throw people and submit them. I need to know how to kick them and punch them too, I guess. Nice. But I really enjoyed it. I think there's something special with martial arts. I think the test of one's abilities. I think to be 100% fully present is very rare for us humans. You don't worry about your bills. When you're in the cage against another human being who wants to chop your head off, you can't worry about your relationship, your bills, or any of those type of things. So you are, for once in your life, 100% in one place. Wow. That's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. You're like in the zone.
Yeah.
I guess they call that the state of flow, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely love it. And it's one of them things that I see, with Chuck Liddell and Tito still fighting. It's very hard to let go of because that I still, right now, retired and all, feel like I could just put together a training camp and get right back at it and win, which is absurd. But that's the mentality of a fighter, and it never lets you go.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely very interesting. So tell me about your early days, falling in love. Obviously we're transitioning from the martial arts and getting into your love of music and dance, and how you're able to win the American Visa lottery and get obviously come over here and transition to acting. Tell me a little bit about that transition to music and dance, and coming to the United States.
Well, I grew up with a mom who was performing all the time, opening for bigger acts as a singer, and that was very influential for me. It's kind of funny because, I'm a white boy growing up in Sweden. My mom listened to Diana Ross and the Supremes, and my dad listens to Jimi Hendrix. So I grew up a very non-typical Swedish childhood, and one of my first things that I fell in love with was breakdance, because when breakdance hit, I just said to myself, this has to be the most ultimate form of expression in dance, because you can do anything. And to me, that was just amazing. And I love the non-violent battles. I remember watching Beat Street, and I was just like, wow, this is the best movie ever. You see a Rocksteady Crew and New York City Breakers go at it, and there's no violence. It's all settled in a non-violent art form, which is kind of crazy with me being a martial artist. That
right. But you saw you saw some parallels, but then the non-violent part kind of.
Well, I think violence as a sport has a place. I think violence in real life should be saved for protecting oneself and the people we love, and standing up to injustice. It definitely has a place. But because of the dance, I ended up getting an offer to come on a cabaret-like show called Solstolarna. And it was a syndicated TV show in Sweden at the time. It was a cabaret, like a Donny Osmond type of a show. So they had a set with dancers, and it was shot almost like theater. And I got to be on there as a dancer, but when they had a little role and they said, we need somebody to come up and buy the suntan lotion at the store, they would ask us, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll do that. And you get to interact with actors. And then I realized, hey, these people aren't just like pretending. They're really prepared, and they are virtually convinced that they're these characters. And I fell in love with acting right then and there. And I think I knew all along that this was going to be something that was a huge part of my life.
Awesome. And obviously, it still is today, at the same time.
Music as well.
Yeah, music as well. Yeah. So how do your early experiences and background also translate, when you came to the U.S., of course, working in this creative industry and film, we all have to have a day job at certain points, because you never quite know. So obviously you took some day job work as a personal trainer, and you even, worked at this company for a period of time where you even amassed a great amount of income for them, and you did pretty well.
Yeah.
So tell me about how your experience as a personal trainer and also as a professional fighter, transferred, to what you feel, were some great strengths you took away from it.
Well, I think, when I first moved here, the acting was kind of hit and miss, and work did really well. After about a year of dueling up, my employer started saying, hey, we really want to promote you. You're really good at this, but we can't do that if you're going to keep screwing around and leaving us for these auditions and these shoots and whatever else. So you're going to have to pick. And I have no safety net in this country whatsoever. So I don't have, my mom and dad are not here. My cousin, uncles, I don't have any of that.
Right.
So I felt like, you know what, I'm gonna get back to that later, which is a big trap for us humans, is to say I'm gonna get back to that later, because sometimes we don't know that we have later.
Yep.
But
that is a trap.
Yeah. So I really focused on the career path and in climbing career ladders, and I did that for quite a while, and I almost completely lost touch with my original whole reason for moving here, which was acting and the entertainment world as a whole. I really feel that there's so many ways you can express yourself, and it gives you a lot of leverage when you want to speak on injustice or whatever else. You actually have people listening to you, and you can make a difference just from that. So after a long time climbing career ladders, I caught myself feeling kind of empty still. And then divorce hit. When the divorce hit, I was trying to kind of find myself again, and I had to find something that I loved, and fighting was running out on me. I knew that I only had so much time left in me, that I decided I was going to get back to acting again. So I started acting again. more like a hobby for my soul to feel good. And then, one day we're sitting on a set, Psychology of Murder, that's on Amazon Prime now, but we're sitting on the set, and we hear that these film incentives are gone. Snyder signed and cut them, and we were like, what are we going to do? At the time, the Michigan indie industry was not strong. We really didn't have anything, and we felt like Hollywood came and saved us, and now we were going to lose it all again.
Right.
And me and Walbert, we looked at each other and said, who's going to make sure that anything of quality that goes anywhere is going to come out of Michigan? And we were like, I don't know. So we made a pact right then and there on that set to say, we're going to put our names in the hat and we're going to try. So bought some equipment and looked up some videos. I've been the kind of... and we talked about this before we met, but about being a forever student.
Right.
I'm the guy on set that, as an actor, even when they were talking about 180s and stuff like that, I would walk up to somebody, and say, hey, what is that? What is that 180 thing they're talking about? Right. Because I wanted to know, because I'm always looking for information, because it's powerful when you know more. Yeah. So when we started doing this, we kind of thought we knew enough to get somewhere. So we did a short film, and then another short film, and they were okay, but definitely not good enough. And we just thought we needed practice. So we, after that, made another feature film called Deceitful. Me and Walbert did that together, kind of funded it out of our own pockets. And it was a terrific learning experience, because we finally learned that we still don't know enough. And that was the greatest lesson ever, because that allowed us to step back, put your ego aside, and get educated. So before the next film, I started educating myself. I went to Rocket Jump, the film school, and I hired a co-director for moving parts in Jerry Hayes. So he was going to direct half of the movie. I was going to direct half, but I was going to be there when he was directing. I was going to shadow and pay attention and see if there were things to learn. We were going to hire a professional cinematographer. So we hired Daniel Duane, a really talented cinematographer, and we were going to have somebody designated for sound. So Walbert said, I have a good ear for this. I know how to do this. I'll shoulder this part. So we did that, and we ended up making Moving Parts. And Moving Parts is done incredibly well on Amazon. It's out on Amazon right now. It's on Vudu and a few other places.
Now, Moving Parts was after Deceitful, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, the Deceitful, we had offers to distribute the film, but I think both me and Walbert knew it wasn't good enough to represent us, and we were afraid that somebody was going to see that and think that was a representation of where we are now. If somebody, because people don't understand how fast we move. There's a lot of people out there that make one feature every other year and stuff like that.
Right.
So they would see that feature and it has 2016 or 15 stamped on it. They're going to think that that's where we are now, and that was scary to us. So we were like, no. Let's hold off on that. So I still think the only release we did was we had a premiere at Imagine, and it was crazy. We sold out the whole premiere. We sold out their biggest theater for that premiere, and it was a good time, but it was kind of bittersweet, because it really dawned on me that we just did not know enough, and not nearly enough even. And that was powerful to learn. When you kind of thought, hey, I'm probably a blue belt, I'm doing all right, and then you go to that premiere, and then you look at the movie with the eyes of an audience, and you're like, I'm a yellow belt. I got to do a lot more work.
Yep, and I just think that's the thing, because I think there's a big distinction, I guess a miscommunication between those who just think, well, my work is just amazing, and hey, no matter what it is, I'm just gonna always put it out. And we all know those people where it's like, they don't have that thirst for, or even like, thirst for more knowledge, or thirst for just to see how can I improve, or to just be vulnerable. And I even know, even for me, I think my work's okay. I still have a lot of ground to cover, and I feel like I'm kind of one of those people where I have to work at closing the gap. And I feel like the only way to close that gap is like what you're doing, is just putting out more work, producing a pipeline. and you build that muscle each week. But like you said,
Yeah.
when there's only people shooting a feature every other year, you're not going to be back in the gym. You're not back in the film gym
Yep.
working that muscle. I know
Yeah.
that's what I got to work on to bring out more content. And
Yep.
that's what you did. You closed that gap. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, if they were putting out more content, then you'd get in a place to where you can start achieving that learning and closing that gap. So that's a really good point.
Yeah. And just finishing projects. I think that's a huge. I think I know a lot of filmmakers. They have that new car smell feel on things, and they're excited and they shoot some of the films, some of the scenes that they love. And then they have the other scenes, and then some of the actors, and maybe they didn't do as good as they hoped, and maybe I didn't capture that right. And now they're like, they look at this perfect thing that's not perfect anymore, and they're like,
Yeah, because it's been kind of dragging on,
Yeah.
and then you got this one actor you tried to get, but he moved to L.A., and then he shaved his beard, and the other girl is, so then you almost have like, you try and shoot a scene 6 months from now, and then you got to have this sort of Frankenstein of the short film
Yes.
from different scenes you got, or had to redo this to go back and get stock. So
Yep.
So I hear you. You just have to, I feel like, be at a place to where you can just take the time. I mean, not take the time, but just know when to call it a film and then to move on.
Yeah. Yep.
And then, like you said, build progress upon that. So tell us about, you going into, obviously, with these short films and then leading into Deceitful and Moving Parts. Tell me about assembling your dream team with Nancy Oswin.
Oswine, yeah.
Oswine and Annette Birch. How'd you meet them? And
Annette Sama.
Oh, Sama?
Yep. C-A-M-A.
C-A-M-A. Okay, and Sama. So how'd you go about meeting your dream team and assembling your Avengers, as far as working with them and yeah.
So Nancy was actually on board from the very get-go. She just wasn't a partner yet. She was a special effects makeup artist, and I had access to her daughter, Calhoun Callie, who's a phenomenal actress. So that kind of slowly transitioned from being that to, hey, let me help carry some of that load of yours. And then she was AD, and then we talked more, and I said, goodness Lord, you're talented, you're smart, you have a really good brain for business. Let's sit down and see what we can do together. So suddenly it was me, Walbert, and Annette, and my wife Katie, who's been she doesn't get the credit she deserves either, because she does. I mean, for Aggerman's Gate, we had 732 submissions for roles. Wow. She weeded through all of that, narrowed everything down to like a top 5, so that when we sat down to cast this finally, we didn't have to sit through all of that, which is, quite tedious. And not only that, but actors, the thing of herding cats is so true. Just emailing back and forth, you just want to pull your hair out of your head because they don't read the casting call. They don't, and then they've forgotten what's the film about, it's unbelievable. I don't even know how they make it out of bed and back to that bed again at night sometimes. But it's a tedious work, and that's one of the things Katie takes care of. She does product placement. She gets designers to dress our Hollywood talent. So many other things that most people don't even see. But when the screen is there, and we don't have to cover the labels of the coffee we drink or the wine that's poured. It looks way more professional, that we're not trying to, right.
You got to,
how we do it.
Yeah, exactly. You got to. Everything is just slightly tweaked out of place, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, they didn't get any permission for that.
Yep, exactly.
So
and then Nick and Annette came on later. So Nick Sorelli and Annette Sama came on board a little bit later, and I think for me it's an energy thing. I think first of all, you have to have the energy to say, I'm going to find a way to do this one way or another, just like me, because that's how I am. There's no such thing as a no. It's, I need to know how to get around this. And I don't like people that limit themselves or limit anything. We just had our first film get picked up by Sony right now. And 2 years ago, if you would have sat me down after Deceitful and said, hey, in 2 years you're going to have a film get picked up by Sony, I'd probably laugh at you, because I don't think that I would realize that things can move that fast.
Yeah.
But I would never say that it can't.
Right.
So I think having a team of people that are as willing to go wherever we need to go and do whatever we need to do to get there is crucial. And I'm blessed with an amazing team, phenomenal energy, and everybody stays mostly in their lane, which is also important. People don't realize that either, but you have too many people that are trying to do the same thing or wish they were doing the same thing or whatever. That can also be troublesome. I think we all know what our roles are, and that helps a lot. And nobody's threatened by anyone, so we work as one unit. It's synergy in one direction, which is amazing.
And how long do you think? I mean, as I get into our next question about going into distribution and finding that niche and finding those right distributors that understood where you were going and understood your voice. What was, tell me a little bit about that, and not only, putting this team together, but, creating a well-oiled machine, but, the path, the long path from your first distribution deal to now. Can you give us some insight for those of us that aren't that familiar with that world and what it was like getting to this point where you are now?
One thing I'm blessed with, and I'm going to give a little bit of credit to my faith, but there's a saying called "Be still and know that I am God." That is powerful to me, because I've noticed usually I screw up when I rush, when I catch myself moving without knowing why or where or how, and at the end of moving parts and taking over, because the movies were filmed apart but had different editors and ended up being done almost at the same time. But we didn't really know how to find distributors, so I went online. I found a bunch of them, and on IMDb, when you click a film in post production, they're like ambulance chasers out there, and they email you and say, "Hey, we're interested in your film, so and so."
Right.
And you respond to them with a screener, and then they give you an offer. And what happened is we got a bunch of offers, and I was like, wow, okay, this wasn't so hard. So I grabbed all my contracts, and I have a lawyer that I go to, and I said, do me a favor and let me know which one of these deals look better. And pretty much he read them all and said, Harley, if you sign any of these things, you don't have a lawyer anymore. And I got to give credit. Bill Dubreff is a phenomenal lawyer. If you don't have one, this is definitely the man you got to talk to. He has saved me from making bad decisions more than once.
Okay.
But so pretty much he said, these are terrible contracts. He said, pretty much they have put in clauses here so that they never, ever, ever have to pay you again. So even the couple of contracts that had money up front, we would never see possibly even that money as soon as we signed the contract. So we were in kind of disarray, and I realized that I haven't spent a whole lot of time on researching this subject, and that's me. I like to know. So it sent me into a spiral of really, really learning about distribution, and it's a rabbit hole. It's Alice in Wonderland. The deeper you go into this, the more lost you are. So after reading up for a long time, I talked to Garrett Theory, an actor here, and he's like, "Hey, Garrett. You got to talk to my uncle. He's in L.A. It's called Circus Road Films. They assist in people essentially getting decent distribution. If you have a good enough film, they will take it on, and they will help you distribute your film. Essentially, now you're going to have a pipeline to all the decent distributors that are out there, and they'll get you away from all the ones trying to rob you." So I'm like, well, that's great. So we contacted Glenn and Sebastian, and we started working on that. We ended up signing with them last summer. And what's cool is they got all of our films distributed with good distributors, going places. So I was really, really happy about that. And that's a connection that I would gladly tell anyone in filmmaking. Talk to Sebastian and Glenn at Circus Road Films. They will help you find the connections, and they, instead of ending up with distributors that are going to take you to the cleaners,
right?
You'll end up with a good distributor with a contract that actually gives you an opportunity to make money. So that was really, really good. And the beautiful thing with that is, after I had 3 films through them that they submitted, all of these distributors now
just lined up at the door.
Well, yeah. So now I have all the contacts. So now, here I am now. We're Agramon's Gate, for instance, and Artificial Loyalty. Artificial Loyalty. Vision signed that film without seeing a clip. Okay, Sony signed that film after seeing the trailer. It's unbelievable what happens when you have a little bit of a relationship with people.
Yep, and you have that leverage, and you have the track record, and of course you got the team behind you.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned too is making films without Hollywood talent. It's not quite a waste of time, but pretty damn close. To earn your money back on a video-on-demand type of platform is really, really hard for a film, and most films without notable names go nowhere. They really don't. The destination is they end up on Amazon. They end up on eventually on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, you get like 6 cents per hour watch of your movie or something crazy like that. So it takes forever for money to come in to the point that you can pay for it unless you bring Hollywood talent. So now with Artificial Loyalty, still not even done. The film still has another month to go.
Right.
Picked up by Sony. And because of the trailer alone in Cannes, we now have buyers in the Middle East and buyers in Asia that are pre-buying the film without even seeing it. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. So...
That's crazy. I mean, just to see, like, it all came from a culmination of hard work and, and basically just curious. So Agramon's Gate? Agramon's Gate. What number feature is this for you?
If you count Deceitful, it's number 7.
Number 7. And this has been over the past, 2 years?
2.5 years, yeah.
Man. So tell me.
3 short films, 7 features in 3 years.
Oh, man. So tell me, Harley, what do you do to keep your finger, I guess, on the pulse of your career industry? What are some ways that you try to make sure you're always staying on the cutting edge? Or, we mentioned you doing research on distribution, maybe reading trade publications. What are things you like to do, not hacks, but more so, just things you like to do to keep learning and stay on the edge of where the industry's going?
Well, I think the team, we meet fairly regularly. I meet individually with all of my teammates at least monthly. And then we meet, together as a group probably every other month. With Nancy and I probably meet weekly. I mean, we talk daily. So, we talk about all these things. We talk about what should we do next. I'm sitting on 4 more feature scripts that I because writing it to me is a stress relief. So when I come out of a feature, what I want to do is go in the dungeon and write. That's what I want to do, and just lock myself up for a little bit. And so we talk about which one should be next, what should we do next, and I think with all of us having a sense of what's around us, we've been making good decisions so far. Abeyance this summer is going to be very interesting because one of my favorite subjects is to take some form of a drama or thriller and make that the setting. But truthfully, the films are about decisions. They're about moral issues. Almost everything we do, I like to really highlight the choices we have in life and what comes out of these choices. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But I love playing with what if. I think those places, and then you stick them in a setting that's simmering already. The film this summer, Abeyance, it's about I read this thing. It's on Facebook, and it come up, and this Russian paraplegic is getting his head transplanted onto another man's body, who's brain dead.
Wow!
And they're doing this, and they've already done tests on deceased primates, and they really think this is going to work. So I read up on this, and then I went, "Oh my goodness, Rothschilds are going to live forever." That's the first thing that comes to my twisted mind. Right. And then I said, "Who's to say that they're going to wait for people to be brain dead? They're already organ harvesting out there.
Yeah, of course.
Why couldn't they just go grab a 25-year-old fitness model of their liking and take them over, so to speak. So with that came a whole script.
Whole idea.
And I just thought that these type of things are intriguing. What would we do when we could? Because I think, that's the trick is to are you still good when no one is watching? Are you still good when you can? Are you still good when you have it all? Those are fun things to play with to me, and I think they're fun for an audience to watch.
Yeah, most definitely. It's very interesting how, and a lot of it's stuff you probably looked at and seen in real life, like an article, like you mentioned, and it kind of zoomed off, So how important, Harley, do you feel is the area of time management? And what are your thoughts on that? Whether you're going through, whether it's on the offshoot season or the day-to-day on a film set, either or. What are your thoughts on just managing your time properly?
I think it's huge. I think what people don't understand, and in general, organization, time management. You only manage a few things. You manage yourself, you manage your people, and you manage your time, and you manage your systems. And those are really the only things that you ever manage. And if you let any of them go, you're going to have major problems. So and this is where I go back and say, I used to think that, oh man, I wasted all this time in the business world, and I did not. Because I'm now applying all those best practices from, being really successful in the business world. I'm applying that to filmmaking, so I know the difference between an urgent and an important thing, and I don't chase something that don't need to be chased. I don't waste time on something where the time doesn't need to be wasted. So prioritizing, which is a big part of time management, is absolutely crucial. And what's important to remember as well is somebody like me, I'm a family man, I'm a father, and I'm a husband, is to make time for self. And I think when we get really, really busy, that is the easiest thing to push aside and say, I
come last, let's get
yeah.
That's more important than me.
Yeah. And sometimes people even get to the point, and I've noticed during filming, I'm thankful that I don't have a day job, because I don't know when I'd see my kids. I don't know when I'd see my wife other when she's on set. But balance, you get balance with time management. I mean, that's what I firmly believe. I think if you manage your time well, you don't go, oh, I'm sorry, I screwed up and I don't have time for you today, and I don't have time for this today, and I can't do that today. In my house we have a planner on the refrigerator, and every single event or anything I'm doing goes on that calendar. So that way everybody knows what's going on with everyone in the house. So it's very easy for us to make plans. So today we went to Rainforest Cafe and took the girls out and had a really good day together. But that only happens if we manage our times properly.
Yep. And do you keep like a to-do list for the day, or do you like the time block? Maybe like, okay, I do this between this time and that time, or you just keep it open to flexibility, I guess?
Anything that is scheduled is on the schedule, and it's got a time slot for itself.
Okay.
As far as I'd like to still be spontaneous as much as I can at the times that I can be. So when we have open time, we're not necessarily afraid of just saying, "Hey, let's go do something," which is always fun. But most of my time at this point is pretty scheduled.
Okay, great. So, and that's like you said, is a very healthy way to keep a balance, right?
Yeah, it has to be intentional. Otherwise, you will slide somewhere.
And then also slide in, obviously, time block personal time too. Awesome. So we're going to get into the quick lightning round. These questions are kind of random. Some people like them, some people don't, but we'll see what happens. So, favorite books or notable?
I love Stephen King books. I've always loved Wes Craven as well. I love when you can scare me and make me laugh in the same book. There's something special about that. And if you watch Taken Over, you can see that being a part of that storyline. I hope Agramant's Gate's going to be able to do that. I had some really funny little things with that movie where you not only do you get to breathe, but you get to laugh.
Okay.
So definitely love Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Wes Craven.
Oh yeah, I'm a big Scream fan as well.
Good.
Awesome. And podcasts? Notable podcasts.
I really enjoyed this one, and
thank
my
you.
favorite one to be on up until today was Tyrone Tan, but this one right here is going to be a competitor.
Appreciate it. So you listened to a few episodes before? Or?
No, just from being on with you right now. But
Cool.
this is one of them things that I'm definitely going to get on.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Tyrone Tan was really a good time. Great interview, and I had fun in LA on his show.
Okay, and tell me, just for the listeners who may not know him, could you give us a quick little plug on Tyrone Tan? Is he?
Tyrone is he's one of the highest rated web podcasts in LA. Okay. He is an actor, producer extraordinaire himself, and he just has a love for film. He is always doing something, and he is at every premiere. He's everywhere. The guy's, I don't even know if he sleeps. He's probably a half vampire or something. But yeah, he's a workhorse and so into films. He was so prepared when we met, and I didn't know why somebody in LA would sit down and talk 60 minutes of film with me, because it was my first time in LA. I didn't really know who was seeing my films. He did all of his homework, and he was just giddy and knowledgeable and very willing, even afterwards, saying, "Hey, you told me your artificial loyalty is going to have a premiere here. Let me know what I can do. How can I help?" And I'm like, "Wow, this guy is just special."
Yeah, humble guy. I'll have to check him out. I know this is kind of general, but favorite films, or maybe we could put it into a genre, then you give me a couple favorites within that category.
The Usual Suspects is up there for me. I love the fact that I love that they got me. I didn't see it, and every single time I watch it, I'm like, I catch it earlier and earlier. So I love that. I love Seven. I love Fight Club. There's a lot of movies that I love, but those are the ones that really jump out at me. The 90s thrillers, Along Came a Spider and Silence of the Lambs, and the well-crafted thrillers. Those are generally my favorite genre. Fallen was amazing with Denzel. Yeah, tons and tons of movies that I love.
Great era. If you get a chance, any TV shows you catch or have caught before?
I think out of all the TV shows I've watched, I think Dexter is my favorite.
Oh, nice. Yes.
even though it was kind of spinning out of control at the end.
Right.
And season 8, you like the fact that you're still running. It's amazing.
Yeah. They had
that was good. That was really good.
Yeah, my dad got me into that show. I started watching during the second season, and they just kind of amped it up. And then of course, shows go through their peaks, and then towards the end, it's either hit or miss. But yeah, Dexter was a favorite of mine.
Yeah,
that was a good one. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Why?
I think a long time ago I had a couple of Androids, and I think with any Windows product you get more bugs, and with iPhone I've never had a problem or a hack or any of those type of things, and so I think that's probably why.
Cool. So, what does a day in the life of Harley Whelan look like from the time you wake up until you go to bed? Give us, our listeners, kind of a look into an average day.
An average day while we're filming is pretty intense. So usually how I do it is at night I sit down, I review everything we're shooting tomorrow, and I remind myself of the shot list. I like to direct a little bit like how I like to act. You are really, really, really prepared. You know exactly what you're doing, and then you throw it all away. And then when you go into it, you can be in the moment and see things fresh, and you're not locked down to the plans anymore. But you're more than likely, because my AD will tell me what I need to do, because he has a sheet that says what I'm supposed to do. Right. But I'm not forced to stick with it anymore. And now I can come up with it all again, the same exact idea, but it's fresh today. So I like that. So I go through everything that we're going to do. When I direct, I am super in the moment. If you ask me about the next scene, I will likely not even understand what you're saying. It'll sound like a different language to me.
Okay.
So I'm a bubble buddy. I know that when I direct, that I'm very much here and now, and Nancy makes fun of me for it because she's like, "Oh, I can't have a question about the set for next scene," but I know we have to wait. Yes, either that or you have to catch me on like when we're eating or something, when we're on the actual break. Then there's a chance that I might be able to expand my brain to fit that in. And then when I get home at night, before I can read the next days, I have to now sit and edit in my head to make sure that everything is going to fit together. So I have to do that unwinding. So that's a pretty simple day. The more complicated days are the days when I'm not filming. So, I wake up in the morning, I have coffee with my wife before she goes to work. Usually I sit with my girls and we watch cartoons for a half hour, and then they usually go play. I usually do whatever chores has to be done around the house. And then I play with the girls, take them to the park, do something. And then I get home. I cook food. I'm trying to make sure that my wife has very reverse roles, but I don't care. I don't care about that. But I try to make sure that there's a good home cooked meal on the table when she comes home.
Okay.
And then we hang out. Usually after that, it's whatever's on the schedule. So either I have to run off, we have an interview, run off for an investor meeting or something like that. One of the most trickiest things with film is to build a budget and to sit down with investors and to get people to understand the amazing opportunity. And the really tough part about that is usually the more money that's put into the project, the better their own opportunity is to get more money back. What we saw now with artificial loyalty, which was a pretty amazing cast. We're looking at again, Sony coming and picking this up, and it's not like Sony was knocking on our door for any of the other films before this. So clearly there's a formula here with having multiple big names leads to a stronger distribution. And when I looked at the numbers at the time when they wanted to bring us on board, what she used to really convince me was the Sony numbers, because they're kind of amazing. And the thing is, so now I'm trying to bring something to that level again so that we can bring the money back, so we can pay the investors back, so they can reinvest, so that we can move that level up.
Right.
And because I had somebody say, when I was in LA, I met with a studio, and they said, I asked how far off am I? And she said, if you would have had Bruce Willis instead of Tom Sizemore in your lead role, and Tom Sizemore would have played the opposite end, that movie would have been in theaters. And I was like, ugh.
There you go.
So the only difference is money.
Money.
That's the only reason that the stuff is not in theaters. And that was awesome to hear, and really hard to hear as well. Because, first of all, the minute you start bringing in a multi-million-dollar budget, you're going to have to leave Michigan. Unfortunately, that's the reality, because if the studio gives me $5 million, that's $7 million in Kentucky. That just means that I can hire, Bruce Willis or Nicolas Cage, instead of hiring, somebody that doesn't have the same value to their name. And then I can bring in somebody who maybe it's not quite as strong and amplify the value with both.
Right.
Can't do that without it. So it's a tricky thing. But the fundraising, that's where we spend an awful lot of our time, is to sit down with people. And we've had, unfortunately, in Michigan, so many filmmakers that didn't know what they were doing, either on the distribution side, or they couldn't see it through. So people have put money in with films before, and they got burnt. Right. So now they're like,
so there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't know about putting money into film. Film is bad. No. You just got to bet on the right horse. And that's what it is. When you know your numbers, it's a lot easier to make good decisions when it comes to investing, whether you're investing in stock. Because I know people who lost all kinds of money on stocks. Right. That doesn't mean stocks are bad to invest in. Right. It just means you need to know some trends and tendencies. Exactly. And you want to know what to bet on. So, so that's a lot of my time is spent on investors, post-production, pre-production. That's pretty much where I spend a lot of my time in the non-production days. And then I come home and help get the girls to bed, and then I get to hang out with my wife for a little bit. Right now, our show is the Black Mirror on Netflix.
Oh yeah, okay.
Kind of a wild ride. That's
Yeah.
the one we're watching right now.
I did watch the pilot. A friend of mine sat me down, and I haven't watched it much since, but I need to.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of good things about that show, though.
I like it because they do good with mind games, and I think mind games are powerful. And I think often we see something we don't really realize that we're really seeing something else. And Black Mirror is doing a really good job with that.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about maybe some of your mentors, maybe either personal or professional, living or dead, maybe some that mentor you in the business right now, through distribution, and also maybe outside of that, maybe on the personal development side or business.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Some of my favorite people that I've dealt with so far are some of the Hollywood talent that we have brought in to act with us. First off, Jan Birch, who is in Artificial Loyalty, and he's in Agramon's Gate, fellow Swede. He has been amazing. When we heard about the Tom Sizemore ordeal last fall, I didn't have the time to find out if it was true or not true or anything. We just knew that we had to make a really quick decision. We already had Tom Sizemore as the lead in Into a Dark Mind, and here's a potential scandal that could really hurt both movies if we keep him.
Right.
So in 24 hours, I called Tom and I said, "Hey man, I love you to death, but I can't have you in on this one." We'd already sent him part of the money. We already had everything planned out, and a couple of days before I was supposed to fly in, I had to pull the plug. He understood. He sent me the police report showing him being cleared and everything. But I'm like, in the public eye right now. I just have to take a step back and protect my investors. So after that, I called around, and I'm not going to mention the names of the other Hollywood actors that were willing to step in on super short notice and come work with us, but we had more than a handful of phenomenal actors willing to do it, which kind of blew me away. But Jan says, "Hey, I have my friend, and he was in Lost Boys and Body Snatchers and Voice on the Side, and phenomenal actor. His name is Billy Wirth." I'm like, "I know who he is," and I'm like, "You think he'd do it?" He said, "We can ask." So we call him up and ask him. Billy said, "I just worked with Tom on a different movie. I don't want to step on any toes. Do you mind if I call him, make sure it's okay?" Right. Tom says, "Hey, man, go work with Harley. Harley's awesome. You're going to have a great time." And the rest is history. And now he's in that movie with us. And I look at Billy. I look at Tom. I look at Dennis Haskins. Dennis Haskins, we talk on a regular basis, too. A lot of these guys are guiding me through some of the murky waters of Hollywood. When I went out there in January, everybody kind of hosted me for a day and took me out and protected me and showed me all the things to look out for.
Right.
And told me,
come here, little one. No.
Right. That's how I felt. But they're so excited because, right now in LA, there's so many places that cast based on your Instagram following and Twitter following. So they were like blown away when they come and see we're casting based on screen presence, truth, and fit, the way Hollywood originally did things when they were making amazing movies. And no offense, they still make amazing movies, but I think there's a lot of them now that are not.
Yeah, they lost their way in some aspects, like you said.
Yeah, so I think they're really excited to see somebody trying to stick to those principles, and they've been really good at guiding me since. Some other people that I really like, Lisa at Vision has been tremendous. We're talking about a CEO of a huge company, and I can call her literally anytime. And if she's available, she will pick up. If not, she'll tell me when I can call her. And she'll give me feedback on how the trailers were playing, what to do, what the poster should look like. She's seriously, she's amazing. I really, really enjoy having her as a distribution for our films because she's special. And then Josh from Green Apple has done the same thing. He has taken over and Into a Dark Mind. And the same thing, straight shooter in the distribution world, those are hard to find, and I have two of them.
Right.
So I feel pretty spoiled. So they guide me through that. And then from all the years of martial arts, I have mentors on that side as well. Biggest shout out though to my mom. She is my ultimate mentor. I think she's my idol. She is she's everything I wish I could be. So
okay, shout out to mom.
Right? So that's my biggest influence in my whole life.
Awesome. And it's good to see that, you get mentors from all different sides, because you get them professionally, you get them personally. Some people just have some of the wrong ones at the bar. Like, those are my mentors. Tell me how much to drink, So it's good to see, obviously, you come from that moral compass of like those different mentors. So what did you say? What are the little things you do to maybe to grow on a daily basis, whether personally, professionally, spiritually, mentally? Obviously, we talked about mentors. Are there any other things you like to do that kind of keeps you always learning? Or
I just think that to go through life, being willing to get your ego out of the way, and again, ego is not a bad thing. It just shouldn't be inflamed or in the way. Because I know a lot of people are like, well, you have an ego. Yeah, of course. We all have an ego. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't want to do something. Otherwise we wouldn't care about our legacy. So, yes, we all have egos. But to know when it's time to push it aside and when to not take offense and to listen to the message and maybe not exactly what they're saying. And it's I read a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and I love the hell out of that book because it really gives you perspective on things. I think sometimes we get really bent out of shape about things that actually don't matter. They truthfully don't matter. My feelings are hurt. What does that mean? I'm offended. What does that mean? Let's think about it. Does it matter? If it matters, let's address it. Let's get clarity. Let's get a solution. If it doesn't matter, let's move on. Let's keep moving. We don't want to get caught up with too much of things that aren't positive or moving us in a general direction of what we need to go to or go from. So really love that book, and I have a little daily. Every single day has a little text thing,
like a little devotional.
Yeah, daily devotion. I really like that. That those are some of my daily things. But I just think I start every day feeling incredibly blessed for what I have, and I think that's important because I think we are learning to want more. We're always thinking about what we want rather than what we have. And I look at it and I'm like, I have 5 amazing kids. Wow. I have a beautiful wife. I have a mother and a father. I have a sister. I have nephews and nieces. I have I do what I love for a living. Like every single day when I wake up, I am blessed. I get to do what I love all day. Everything that I do all day either is putting something into my kids, putting something into my wife, putting something into me, putting something into our film. I'm so blessed that I'm spoiled.
Right.
So I don't want to lose track of that. I don't ever want to think that, walk around with a chip on my shoulder because I want something. The wants will take care of themselves.
Yeah, and that definitely transitions very well because there's a lot of people that that struggle with comparing themselves to other people, like where this person is at. I'm just right here. Obviously, I know that's not the issue for you. So what would you say for people out there they're struggling? They see that gap. I know what my gap is. I have to close the gap. And oh man, Harley, where he's at, man, he closed the gap. Oh my God, how am I gonna? What do you say to those people who are just always struggling to see where someone else is versus where they are?
Well, I think first of all, it's a waste of time because you want to spend that energy on yourself. If you're complaining about that you're not in the shape that guy is, spend that energy at the gym, and maybe you would be. If you want to say I'm not as far along, I had somebody said this to me. I've heard so many funny things, but somebody said to me this just a couple months ago, and he said, I could make movies that got sold too if I could just bring in the money. And I said, yeah, do you know how hard that little portion that you just skipped right over, do you know how hard that is?
Yep.
I have to sit in front of people and I have a conscience. I'm not going to lie to people. I'm going to tell them the truth, that there are risks involved and it might take you 2 years to see your money back. I have to sit there in truth and tell them all these things and hope that they invest. Do you really think that I have rich friends that just run around throwing money packs up It's hard work to get in front of people and to say, hey, you know that money, that nest egg that you have, that retirement thing you have, I think I can find a better place for that. And I think if you allow me to use that to chase my dreams, I can help you chase your dreams indirectly through it. That's not easy. It's not easy. And how are they going to believe you? Here I got to sit down and show them what we've done with this and that. It's a lot of work. So when somebody says, well, if you just, but go. Right. There are just as many people in Detroit for you as there is for me. Go get them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a funny thing. The other thing that drives me crazy is the competitiveness. Somebody said, why are you so happy for Sam Logan and those guys in Nain Rouge? I'm like, they're making a movie in Detroit. How can I not be excited for that?
Rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah, and I said, hang on here. I said, what if that movie takes off and does great? Do you know that Jessie Jensen is their lead? She is strong supporting in Into a Dark Mind. Do you think that would affect my movie?
Right.
What about Amar? Amar is in that movie. He's in my movie too.
Yeah,
so we have a bunch of people that travel back and forth. He has a key grip. That's my key grip. You don't like.
Yeah.
We're not competing. We're actually on the same team. We're just playing different positions on the team, and maybe we're on the bench and he's on the field, and so on and so forth. But if my movie takes off, it'll benefit him. If his movie takes off, it'll benefit me, and we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest mind block that keeps a lot of people where they're at. It's the whole, hey, if this person hits the elevator, he gets to the top, send the elevator back down, where a lot of people just get caught up on just being islands and not realizing.
The clicks drive me crazy.
Yeah, it just...
I can't do the clicks. Yeah. It's funny because I've had somebody said that they're like, oh my God, you hired somebody from this and that, and I'm like, they were the best person. They had the best audition. I want them. I don't care what clique they're from. If they're the best, I want them.
Yeah, it's just a hard thing for a lot of people to swallow. But it's just a matter of like when you come from start switching your mindset from a mindset of abundance. That's scarcity. That's the scarcity talking.
Yeah.
You know, you got to switch it to, hey, how can I help this person? That's kind of more my mindset too. Is that, you know, not only switch it from, hey, help me, give me this money to make my movie, to, you know what? Let me show you how I make money for my investors. And at the same time, you can help us tell this story and support the arts, you know.
Yeah.
Then at the same time, we all go to the top. So it's a great point. So what were some of your biggest setbacks or failures that you had, whether personally, professionally, through film or karate? What were some of maybe your setbacks, and how did you overcome that? What did you learn from it?
Well, my setbacks have been the best things that ever happened to me. You know, every single thing that have truly challenged me in life has, on the other side of it, been an amazing blessing. So you're looking at me from a fighting perspective. I was one of the best judokas in Europe. I was definitely at the top echelon in Sweden, and I started feeling the pressure of being expected to win, and I didn't like it. And then I ended up with an injury, and after the injury, I said, you know what, I want to start focusing on Taekwondo because nobody's expecting me to be that great. So I really hustled, and all of a sudden I'm repping Sweden. We're competing in Holland, and it's going really well, and everything keeps happening like that. So every single time I fall down, after I get up, I find a way to make that something that was great. Right now, I look at the divorce. That was probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through, and at the time, I felt like a complete failure. Now I only get to see my kids half of the time instead of being there all the time, and it was so hard on me. And I was trying with everything I had in me to try to hold a family together with, you know, an ex that obviously was already kind of moved on in another direction, and that was incredibly hard. But now I look at it and say, I met Katie. We have way better of synergy in life. We have way better of a synergy in how we raise our kids. We have way better of a synergy occupationally. So it was a blessing. We had 2 little kids that came into this world that are amazing. So the thing that almost crushed me brought me things that I would have never had if I wasn't going through that. And the same thing happened in martial arts. And to be honest with you, that was also deceitful. Deceitful, even though a lot of people went to the premiere and they were like, wow, high five, awesome job. I watched that movie and I said, does this belong on the big screen? Would this be playing in this theater? And the answer to everything was no. And I remember talking to Jerry Hayes afterwards, and I said there are a lot of things that I really liked. You know, I really liked that we completed the project.
Right.
I really liked that we had a fair amount of actors that were truthful, and I really liked that we were able to get in a big theater and sit here and celebrate it with our cast and crew and our friends and family. But that film wasn't good enough. It was not good enough, and it was really hard to sit there,
take your ego out of it.
Yeah, and say we were not good enough. And I do that at the end of each movie. I sit down, I look at it, and I say, what do we have to get better at? Because I always say, put it next to the best stuff out there. Put it next to the stuff in theaters. Obviously, I'm not going to make an Avengers movie. We'll never have that budget, so I'm not going to compare it with that. But compare it to a thriller or a crime drama. And why couldn't I? Why couldn't I make something just as good as what is it? The one
90s thriller?
No, it's the in-betweener from Unbreakable.
Oh, it just came out recently.
Yeah.
It was like an in-betweener for Unbreakable.
Yes, the one that they're shooting right now. They're done with it, but yeah, it's the one with Bruce Willis. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Well, I looked at that film and I'm like, why is that movie doing better than, say, Into a Dark Mind?
Right.
Why? If I watch these two truthfully side by side, what are they doing that I'm not doing, and why am I not doing it? And I figured out that there's certain things I can't do. I can't buy a robotic camera arm that'll, I can't do car chases or whatever it may be. But most of the acting, I can bring in a very, very truthful actor. I can slow down my production pace to get all the shots I need. I can get better at editing scenes. I can make better transitions. I can fine-tune the script just a little bit more. So all these little things that we can do should be applied the next time around, and we should do that over and over and over again. And I think that we can move mountains if we do things that way. But always compare your work to the best stuff out there. Don't ever say, because somebody was like, well, it's pretty good compared to other Michigan stuff. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because that's not, distributors aren't going to say, hey, that's pretty good compared to other Michigan stuff. That they don't care where it's from or what state it's. No, they don't care. They want to see, will people buy this? That's the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Man, that's a great point. That's so what would you say, is there anything that you feel that still makes you uncomfortable today? And is that a good thing?
Ooh, uncomfortable.
And is being uncomfortable, is that a good thing?
No. I'm not really. God, that's an interesting question. I don't think I'm ever uncomfortable. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think the only time that you'd catch me uncomfortable is if I end up in a setting where I wasn't prepared to go. So I'll tell you. I'll finish with a really, really funny story that will show you how crazy.
Oh yeah,
we
still got a few questions left. I'll try and
So I'm heading to New York. I'm going to see my friend, and I'm flying over there. At the same time, he's having girlfriend problems, and he is on a plane going back to Sweden, and I land in New York, and I don't know what's going on. And a friend of mine says, I have somebody coming to pick you up at the airport, and his name is Freedom. I'm like, okay. Freedom. All right. So I'm expecting a hippie or I don't know what. And I see this guy, chisel, black guy, probably my height, and I just had this, I know this guy from somewhere. I mean, just get that face. Anyways, so he's like, yeah, I heard bad news, but I got time to hang out if you want me to show you around or whatever. I got this movie thing going on tomorrow if you want to come. And I'm like, movie thing. I didn't really know what to ask. I was kind of still like, first time ever in New York. So he gets me checked into my hotel, and the next day he asked if I want to go to this movie thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, sure. So I show up to this. It's the red carpet premiere of Poetic Justice.
Wow.
John Singleton, Janet Jackson, Tupac. Everything there. And I'm like...
And this is when you first moved to New York, like first moved to the U.S.
First, I hadn't even moved here yet.
Oh.
I lived in Sweden.
Yeah, you were there visiting. Wow.
Yeah, so I walk in, come to find out, this is Freedom Williams from the CNC Music Factory. And I'm hanging out with all these cats, and I was like, It was the only time I felt incredibly starstruck and uncomfortable because I was so unprepared.
Right.
I think being unprepared makes me uncomfortable. Other than that, I don't think I'm really all that uncomfortable. I try to be prepared and on time because that's probably the only thing that frazzles me is to not be prepared.
And that kind of went to my other question. What's one thing you're maybe always looking to improve upon? Obviously learning and always, tweaking. And, looking back, would you change a thing? Looking back?
The scary thing is if you change something, that's that chain reaction.
That butterfly effect
yeah,
sort of deal.
No, I don't. I couldn't risk it. I couldn't risk it. It's where I'm at is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I wouldn't change a thing. I'm right. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. But as far as learning and growing and continuing, there's so much growing that we can do, especially when we put our ego aside and look at things creatively and look at things critically. So I'm hoping to learn, and I'm hoping my learning curve stays pretty much the way it's been going. I think that's key. And you know what I found? If you stay that way, you attract people that are like that. We just brought on a new team member in Alex Gasparetto, and I was fortunate enough to be an actor in Acoma, and he's a really good director. He's a really good editor. He's a really good cinematographer. He's got like all these skills, and now he came on board with Agramon's Gate, and I love the guy. I mean, he's so talented. He's
going to be hot one day.
Yeah, he is.
Obviously, you're already on your way, but Alex is,
bring him
along for the ride.
Trust me. Yeah, I don't know who's going to bring who along. But he's very, very talented. Yeah. And the same thing again, the energy thing, which is huge for me. Great energy. Him and Lucy, phenomenal, just great human beings, and I love that. People that are just good humans. I look forward to having more people like that in my life.
Awesome. And looking forward on that account, what obviously we had the features, coming up. What's next for you? What's your vision for your company, for your empire you're building 3 years out, 5 years out, and what goals are you looking to instill, with that vision?
So the ultimate goal is at some point somebody on our team is going to grab one of those Oscars. Somebody's going to grab one. And honestly, I don't care if it's me or Nancy or Katie or Alex or who. Somebody's going to hold one of those suckers, and it's going to be theirs. That's the ultimate goal. But for me, just being able to make relevant movies, to be able to tell stories, and it doesn't always have to be with such a heavy message. Sometimes it's just, let's entertain an audience. An audience might need a 2-hour break from a terrible life, and they might just click onto Netflix or whatever and watch a movie, and that 2-hour escape gives them just enough sanity to make it to the next day.
Amen.
So sometimes it's the message. Sometimes we're trying to tell a story. So you look at Bennett's Song, where we have diversity and dealing with people that are different than us, and how to deal with bullies and all these things, and it has so much meaning. And then you look at a movie like Into a Dark Mind. It's really just sit back and enjoy the ride,
right?
And just get sucked into this crazy story for a couple hours.
Yeah, and that's a good reminder too, because I think sometimes as filmmakers we do get caught up on the passion of this. You got to tell this great story, or it's still a great story, but like a heavy message sort of thing. And then once in a while, it's like, hey, you got to just turn your mind off for 2 hours and enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I think that's good to have that awareness of that balance. 'Cause I think sometimes we get caught on just
And I see that
being heavy.
too much, where people, as a Christian myself, I see Bible thumping, and it's like it just turns me off.
Yeah.
And I see people when they're trying to force a message at you, and it never is received all that well when you do. Most of the time, the messages are best delivered in documentaries or as a side thought, like when you start looking at, some of the Christian undertones in Lord of the Rings or all those type of things. You're like, we don't really see it, but we see how they treat people that are different than them and like them and all those type of things. And we learn valuable lessons without really ever realizing that it has some kind of moral compass for us and some form of perspective for us. I think sometimes we're trying a little too hard.
Yeah, they're showing, not telling. Sometimes
Yes.
when you're telling, you're just beating upside the head versus just showing it. So that's a really great point, and I think we need to hear that more than once.
Yeah.
So tell me, Harley. I mean, what events do we have to look forward to, or any initiatives or things you got coming up the pipeline? I know we'll get this episode out pretty soon. Anything you could let us know about stuff coming up or notable dates?
I think the big focus right now is we have so much distribution coming up this summer and this fall. So I'm going to give some quick, not dates, but months. So the next film to hit the market will be Bennett's Song. It'll be out in August. We're hoping to have a network deal actually on that one.
Okay.
So that's the game plan. Shortly after that, you will have Taken Over and Into a Dark Mind and Artificial Loyalty all hit pretty much at the same time in September or October. So all of those will be out. Some of those are earmarked, hoping for Redbox release, and some of them, Artificial Loyalty, I know they're still looking also for a network type of release. So we'll see what happens with that. And then Agramon's Gate, depending on which distributor we end up finalizing and going with, but they are actually trying to push for that one to already be in Redbox by this October, which is wild.
And that's good news. That's
Yeah.
awesome. How do you feel about that?
I'm really excited. I think, what I really like about Agramon's Gate is that we took a really, really good story and we were able to, I hope we were able to, entertain, make people think, but also scare them a little bit, give them both the thrill and the horror kind of combined. And I'm really excited to see what it looks like. Alex says, I don't know what to do. I have 2 scenes left to edit, and we're at an hour 43. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And those 2 scenes, one is, I think, 7 pages, and the other one is 15, 14 pages long. So we can't have a 2-hour horror movie.
Right.
So now you're in trouble because
you're going for that 90-minute sweet spot. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be 90, but I think the minute you go over hour 45, you have to have major Hollywood names. Otherwise, people start to kind of and I know what it's like.
Yeah.
Me and Katie will sit down and we'll be like, all right, we got to get up at 7:30 tomorrow. It's 11 o'clock. We go through and we look, and it's like if it's over an hour 40, hour 45. Nope, skip that one. Got to do that on a day when kids get to bed a little sooner, and they get pushed to the side. And over 2 hours, we rarely touch. Like that's once a month we have the time to sit down for something like that. Yeah. So I know that I can't end up with a 2-hour and 5-minute movie. That can't happen. But we'll have some fun tightening everything up, I'm sure.
Awesome. So where can our listeners, some of them are just listening and meeting you for the first time, where can they go to, learn more about you? Can we get our website and where you at on social media and
I think Painted Creek Productions on Facebook is probably the most active place.
Okay.
We have fantastic behind-the-scenes photography by Jim House and Winding Trail Photography. So a lot of things are coming out there all the time. Also, when we release our new trailers, they'll come through there. When we release new posters, it'll come through there. So that's a very active place. But then I'm on Instagram, and I believe all my handles are still in my old fight name. So it's Harley the Swede. So that's kind of how you'd find me, Harley the Swede at or Harley Wallen. Either which way, you'll find me on most of all social media. The only thing I'm not super active on yet is Twitter. I kind of got lazy and I linked my Twitter to my Facebook. Twitter's not interactive enough for me. I like Facebook from a dialogue type of perspective, and I'm pretty easy. If you're curious about anything that I'm doing,
you're very engaging, very participating. You mind me asking, do you post everything on there yourself, or do you have like, oh wow, that's a job among itself from Facebook sometimes.
But Lisa from Vision said, she said, when we're getting close to these films releasing, I don't know if you have a full-time or a part-time person for your social media.
Right.
But you're going to have a full-time. And I said, okay, I will talk to me when I get home about that.
Yeah, they have this great thing called Hootsuite. I think you'll love that too.
Oh, yeah?
Automates everything. So.
Oh, you might have to tell me more about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there that I'm getting privy with myself. So, Harley, as we kind of wrap up here, it's been a great interview. Just really diving in and just getting to know the Harley behind and in front of the camera and behind it as well. Okay. So tell me a little bit about what you think legacy means to you, how you want your legacy to be remembered, and maybe just 3 key takeaways, for our audience.
First things first, I want to be a bridge builder. That's probably, I see a country divided, I see people divided, and it breaks my heart every day. And I want to be a bridge builder because I think we all focus so much on the little differences between us when we are probably 95% alike. So why do we dig our heels in? And why can't we see? Why can't we listen with an intent to learn? Why can't we pretend that we're the dumbest guy in the room and maybe we can learn something? I want to be a bridge builder, and I want to help people step away from. And conflict is good, but we don't have to fight over it. In a think tank, which I've been a part of several times, we have a lot of different ideas, but it's in a positive atmosphere. We're trying to problem solve, and I think what has happened to social media, it has given everybody the power to speak without accountability, and nobody's changing their mind. It's not like somebody's going to be like, yeah, you know what, you're right.
I've never seen it that way.
We need to control guns a little bit better. That doesn't happen.
By comment 33, all of a sudden, I've convinced them. No, you haven't.
No, nobody changed their mind at all because nobody was listening. Everybody was just repeating things that had already been said. Nobody's thinking for themselves anymore. They're just repeating things.
Right.
And I think the sooner we start listening again, because we actually probably mostly want the same thing. We just don't express it very well. And we probably come from different perspectives so that we don't see it that way because of something. And maybe we can help that go away by listening. And again, I don't want to get political, but I think the reason Trump won was because he talked to a bunch of people that haven't been listened to for quite a while. They've seen their dreams and stuff fall apart, and they said, you know what, this guy, he gets it. And the people that were underneath, they were like, you lost your stuff? I haven't had any, and neither did my parents. See how nobody's listening. They're all just saying, well, look at me. My mom said something really, really smart when I was younger. She said, everybody only worries about themselves. I'm the only one who worries about me. Think about that.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Okay.
In case a few people caught it.
Everybody's always thinking about themselves. I'm the only one who thinks about me.
Man, I got to think on that.
That's deep. That's deep, deep, deep.
Everybody thinks about themselves.
Except me. I'm the only one who thinks about me.
Wow.
That's how we walk through life. We walk through life just like that. Everybody wants to be understood. Nobody wants to understand. It's a tricky place we're in. So I want to be a bridge maker. I don't really know if I need anything else. I don't know if I need a second or third, but I want to build bridges. I want to make people find a way to unite. I mean, we have so much to unite about. We have so many things to fight for. I want to stop fighting against things and start fighting for things.
Awesome, man. Well, we heard it here first. Harley Whelan, Career Pulse Podcast, is dropping nuggets and nuggets of value, man. Great having you
Thanks,
out.
Howard.
Awesome. Looking forward, man. Career Pulse Podcast. We are out. All right, there you have it. Interview with Harley Whelan, Career Pulse Podcast. Probably one of the most humble, down-to-earth guys I've ever known. I mean, he's somebody that, came on the scene, was in acting early on, took a step back, went into the corporate world, and then was able to take a lot of that and apply it into this field. And has obviously just been running a powerhouse production company as far as, putting these films out, as far as distributing. Like I said, 3 features a year. That's almost unheard of for him to be, him and his team to be putting out that sort of production. So once again, great takeaways when he said there's no such thing as no, just how do I get around to this? A lot of stuff that he mentioned, not having a, safety net. After a while, he had to take the leap. Being a forever student, even when the incentives got cut, even when he had his first feature playing in the theater, he kept saying, how can I keep learning and how can I keep making it better? Another one of his points when he talked about with distribution is just you have to be willing to be vulnerable, put yourself out there, when you're going to investors and just tell them, just being real with them about the good and the bad. Make it time for yourself. It's what gets you your balance, and also when he mentioned that, being super in the moment, knowing to do your prep work, but be willing to throw things away. Okay. And finally, he also mentioned just be willing to put go through life putting your ego to the side, knowing when to push it aside. Knowing is great. It's a great motivator, but knowing when to push it aside as well. So like I said, he also mentioned there are risks involved. Your time you spend comparing yourself to other people, you can spend that energy elsewhere. And also his takeaways were also setbacks have always been the best thing that even ever happened to him. Also on top of that, I really like the takeaways he mentioned on just, one day someone on his team is going to grab an Oscar. And it's just all about lifting people up and seeing someone associated with one film that does well that helps, lift the tide, lift all boats. And then finally, he mentioned just being a bridge builder in a divided country. And why focus on the 5% that makes us different when 95% of us are the same? And also, like when he mentioned everybody wants to be understood, but no one wants to understand. There's so many takeaways from this episode. Once again, you can follow more of what Harley Whelan is up to at Painted Creek Productions on Facebook. And he's also at Harley the Swede, the Swede of the Swede, Harley the Swede. On social media. So guys, we're all set. That's episode 4 of season 2 of the Career Pulse Podcast. Once again, hope you guys get a good takeaway out of these interviews. Like I said, they're long format. They're raw, real. I'm not here to do the little entertainment weekly. So hope you guys enjoyed that. And feel free to look out for the next episode. Hayward, Career Pulse Podcast. I'm out. Take care.